What's going on, everybody? This is James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and you're here for another episode of the Facts Project. Today, special guest for the third time, Chris Moses, Saturn Effect. We're here to talk about Saturn Effect Alpha, the beginning of Volume 2, Issue 5. Thank you for being here, man.
Thank you for having me on, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
the three-peat.
Yo, for real, man. Because I mean, shit. When we first started talking about this, as far as like exactly what Saturn Effect was in the beginning, and of course, this being like this ultra sci-fi epic that you pretty much put together. There's so many pieces involved in this, and the fact that, of course, also you gotten your beginning in starting Control Z, which is still saying, look, there it is right there, but still salivating in the same realm. Great to see, brother. Yeah, I got volume one right here. See, I'm
Yeah, it looks that looks really nice on your wall, man.
yeah,
That
man.
looks real good.
Appreciate that. So, if we could go back a little bit, and of course, beginning with, of course, volume one, the first four issues of this story, um,
Right.
we are pretty much brought into this world. And note, there's a little bit of I would say uh personal revealance amongst the community that's pretty much out there that you've created with this world that you've created. So it first and foremost, if you could explain to the audience exactly who Alpha and Centauri are.
For sure. So Alpha and Centauri are two rebels that are from the Titan colonies, which is this offshoot of humanity. They've colonized Titan, they've colonized Mars. We're in the distant future. And now the Earth Empire that has expanded as so much and has been neglectful and has been mistreating their colonies out further out in the system. They Alpha and Centauri, have had enough, and they decide that they're gonna try and rebel. So that's what they do. But to add on to that, the Titan colonies themselves are divided because there are two rivaling post-human groups. So they're not aliens, but they're genetically modified humans. And there's two different factions of them. There's the pure, which are were created from rich connected people that ended up doing genetic modifications on themselves and on their children and design and taking this idea of being designer babies and like really like picking the best of their genes, very eugenic type of thinking, to create the pure, and they end up becoming clones of themselves. And so we have characters like Bones and Glass that are brothers, but they're actually clones. So and
Mhm.
then you also have the modified, who are instead of being a more aesthetic or a more show of power and wealth and status like the pure. They are more of they were created in a to do jobs. So there's multiple types of modified, and the irony of the whole thing is that the pure hate the modified, but if you look at a wider sense, they all are technically considered modified, because modified just means genetically altered for something at birth. So all these modifieds, they have very specific adaptations. We have a character named Enhance that is a Titan modified, and so she was created in order to help with terraforming Titan, which is what the Titan colonies are there for. And then
Mhm.
you have people like Zex, who is a big villain, who is an astro modified, and his job was to build giant space projects like the Titan colonies, the mega stations that they use. That's a big a crucial setting point for the whole story.
Yeah, and also I'm guessing, of course, because of this superior origin story, that we're pretty much past Earth at this point, and in order for a ways and a means for us to survive, the pure are pretty much based off of five families that tried to pretty much create a master race and clone these, I guess, in their eyes, a perfect revealing of themselves. And in the modified,
Right.
they created indentured slaves.
Right. So the modified, in a sense, so the modified aren't necessarily slaves, but they are. There is a lot of tension between the two, and the pure do see themselves as better than than the modified. And the modified do more of the menial labor for sure, which is like all of the things that require like being out on the surface of Titan, because they can actually survive it, in which the pure can't, because they don't have useful modifications in that sense. So yeah, it's definitely a very interesting like mirror of society and like what's going on, and that's where we or where I like to play with a lot of like ideas of racial sort of strife and tensions that what we see in our own lives and here on Earth in a different setting, in a different light, and sort of like ask questions. It makes you think about things in different ways. But yeah, that's the Titan colonies. That's Alpha and Centauri, and that's like the sort of the backdrop of what's going on before we start the adventure and how they're going to end up freeing everyone.
Now, one of the things that pretty much starts to bring forth the conflict that ends up happening, of course, in issue 4, was the anniversary of the Titan Wars. Now, where, in fact, of course, did this conflict begin, and where did all this tension come from?
So, I mean, great question. So, the first ever issue of the Saturn Effect was the Saturn Effect Ajax. And in the Saturn Effect Ajax #1, which you can read for free online at thesaturneffect.com, is um is an issue where we see this pivotal end of the Titan War that we end up celebrating in issue 4 of Alpha, on Hero Day, where Ajax, the titular character, and Helena end up blowing up one of these super mega stations in order to stop a war between a war that has been going on between the Titan colonies and Earth over control over who's going to control the Titan colonies.
Mm-hmm.
So in Alpha, we're really dealing with all of the backlash and all of the repercussions of this one issue going forward, and what that means for the whole entire universe, basically, and this whole and all the characters. And we see how it directly affects people like Alpha in Alpha 1, where we actually see that same moment that we see in Ajax 1, but from Alpha's perspective on on another mega station, watching the one where his parents happen to be on blows
Mm-hmm.
up, and it starts his and his sister's journey for freeing their home and enacting some sort of vengeance for their parents and everyone innocent that had died in that moment. And but that's the also interesting thing about the Saturn Effect, is we get to see both sides of that, because we see Ajax and Helena and what caused them to actually do that, and questioning if they should have even blown up that a whole entire station, right? And so that's like sort of the whole message of the Saturn Effect, or not the whole message, but one of the many messages that we're sort of playing with, is like these multiple perspectives, and how that and how multiple perspectives can see an event differently, how it can affect people differently, and hopefully it brings us anyone that reads it to some deeper understanding of what it means to be human, and how we all see things differently, and how all have our own perspectives, but hopefully are striving for something greater and better for whoever we personally love and want to do better, right? And that's also something that we see in the Saturn Effect, because everyone has their own motives and their own motivations, and it's not necessarily the same one as anyone else's, right?
Yeah.
um and does that make them bad? Does that make them good? I mean, it's as I said, it's all a matter of perspective.
Do the pure and the modified, of course, are they all placed within the Titan colonies as well as Earth?
Yeah, so the modified, for the most part, are on the Titan colonies because of, as I said, they're there to, modify and
Yeah.
terraform Titan. Um, and the families, the pure families, and we learned this in Alpha 4, they're all spread out throughout all of the solar system, and they all have certain spaces where they're most powerful. So you have the Null, who are powerful on Earth.
Mm-hmm.
You have the Veer and the Zwei, that are both on the Titan colonies at the moment. And then you have the two other families, the Funf and the Dry, that are on Mars and and the asteroid belt. So there's all these different power centers spread out throughout the solar system with the pure, and that's just sort of the lore of it and the world building, and it makes it interesting, and we get to see these different, you know, these different families essentially, and how they interact,
Right.
and how they view themselves. You know, some of them view themselves as family, and other ones don't. So it's an interesting, and they all have their own internal struggle and conflict with each other. You know, they're not all five families. They, you know, they work together, but are they all friends? Do they all get along with each other?
Right.
That's not necessarily the case.
They all, I guess, they all came together for the betterment of the race, if that's what you want to say, of the
Yeah,
species.
yeah,
Mm,
of their group, right, of their
right.
interests, and so it's what's good for them now. But as we see in Alpha, and as we will continue to see further on into Volume 2, which will bring the Saturn Effect to conclusion, um, you'll see that these families all have differing motivations, and the character of Fauna, who's at the head of the Zwei family, may have her own motivations that might not necessarily line up with the motivations of the other heads of the family.
That's true because within the five families, we didn't within the first four issues, you don't see a lot of them. You understand
Right.
what the conflicts are, but you don't understand exactly who's pulling the strings.
Right, right. And so since we're on the mega colonies for or on the space stations for most of it, we really only see Zwei and Veer because those are the only two families that are there. But we
Mhm.
do see in a scene where we see like a council of them all, and we get to
Yeah,
see the different, yeah, we get to see the different families in this sort of virtual space. But you know, and that's like the beauty of the Saturn Effect is you really can read a lot of this stuff and not necessarily like it can, you can get really into it, you know, and it can really add some richness and flavor to it, or you could just sit back and really enjoy the badass sci-fi adventure.
it's true.
um and that's what I really hope to do with my work is, and it's something I hope to do with Control Z as well, is tell something that's badass, tell something that's dope, and people are like, that's a really crazy story. But also, if you want to be that person that goes back and like picks at everything and like really like tries to see all the different you know, little things that I laid out for people to try and find or put together, or just at least think about, right? Like sometimes you put different elements of a story into you know, into your story, just different things that you're thinking about, different topics, or different questions, and you just lay them out there. And you might not necessarily have an answer to all of it, or you may have a reason, but you might not have like and a final conclusion, a final like magnificent thought about it. It might just be there to provoke someone and
Mhm.
make them think about something and let them go on and make their own thing that makes them go, okay, well, what if you take this idea and that idea and you know, play with that, and so that's what I'm always hoping to aim for, is people, leave people thinking, while also making them go like, damn, that was fucking badass, dude. Like I need more of that, you know.
So now as far as like the five families, their initial plans, of course, were to, of course, terraform all of these planets with the Titan colonies and basically provide replicants of Earth. And of course, they've conjured themselves to make this species and to have all this control. But is there an end goal amongst them?
You know, I think it's an interesting question. I mean, what is the end goal of people, right? Well, like what is our own end goal? Like
Mhm.
what are we meant to be doing? And you know, it's a question that we play with a little bit in the Saturn Effect, and who knows, we may even play with that further with whatever comes next. It's actually really interesting because this is a story that I've written a little while ago, so there may be things after the Saturn Effect that
Mm,
build on things even further. And you know, maybe the Saturn Effect is over, but who says Alpha is over
this is
when the
true.
Saturn Effect ends? So that's a great question, and I hope you continue to read and readers continue to go on and try and figure out what is the end goal of the pure, but what is the end goal of all of us? What is the point of being human? Why are we here? These are all sort of questions that are being played with in the
Mhm.
Saturn Effect in a lot of different levels.
So also within these the liner notes of the panels, of course, we realize that there's a dynamic between one member of the pure and one member of the modified with I believe it's is it Veer or Swide that's dating,
Right. It's Bones, Veer, and Enhanced.
yeah, and enhanced.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
they have a sort of little thing, but necessarily, of course, it's kind of like out of bounds. It's not necessarily
Mm.
supposed to be going on and everything like that. So is there any more to that in these later issues as to pretty much that whole thing that's happening between them? Because that can't be the only one. That can't be the
Mm.
only relationship that's happening amidst the pure and the modified. Now, is there a dynamic there to where, say, if for instance, a modified were then to become pregnant, where
I
would
don't
that
know,
lead?
man. I don't know, man. I guess you're gonna have to
I'm gonna have
read
to
and
read.
find out.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna have to read and find. But it's a great question, and you know that that's something that may happen when two. I mean, as I said, they're not aliens; they're post-humans, so they are still
Right.
humans, and
Exactly.
that means these things are still possible. You know, so who knows what would happen and what the ramifications of a some sort of hybrid child between the two would be
Mhm.
between these two groups, obviously, that are very divided. Maybe it furthers division, maybe it brings them closer together. um and who knows if it'll happen at all. So
Right.
we need to, like, because maybe there's a bunch of people that have interest in that not happening or coming to fruition, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, this is the beauty of the Saturn Effect. There's a lot of different of multiple storylines going on at one time. There's a lot of different characters, and but it all ends up colliding into one spot, and you know, being really entertaining. So I like where your head's at. I don't want to spoil anything though.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil anything that hasn't
Gotcha.
come out. We could
Gotcha.
talk about the stuff that's out, but the stuff that's to come, we'll leave. We'll let it be, because you can only really read something and be surprised by something one time. And so
Mhm.
there's only going to be one time for us to ever put out the Saturn Effect, to ever talk about the Saturn Effect for the first time, five, six, seven, and eight. And that's the beauty of it, right? Like, and then
Right.
it'll come to an end, and that's also the beauty of it. So we'll get there when we get there, and you got to enjoy the journey, you know, enjoy the ride. And that's all, you know, something I tell myself all the time, because comics is something that takes a lot of time, especially as a writer. Like, I can sit here and I can pump out a script relatively quickly, but you know, finding the artists, you know, putting it all together, the designs, the layouts, everything, and then actually getting it printed and getting it kickstarted and et cetera, or getting it pitched and people picking it up and
This is true.
all the like, it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, so you gotta have a lot of patience, and you gotta enjoy the journey, because the journey is really, at the end of the day, that's all you got, right?
Yeah.
Is the journey. So
Another question. What
yeah.
is the purest problem? Because they seem to have an objectifying, uh, I guess they have an objectifying way of detailing sex as more of a modified thing. Like,
Mm,
they look at it but like, oh, let's do it how the muties do it. I was like, uh,
right.
isn't that how y'all do it too? Like, why are y'all looking at it like it's like something that they do? It's something more primitive.
Right. So the modified are still do it the old fashioned way, but the pure, they actually are born in factories. And so,
Right.
as since they're all clones, they don't actually need to do it.
Like they're
So
sitting there in a
um
pod and they're like an embryo, and then
exactly.
boom, it
Exactly. And they split, and they're grown in test tubes and vats. So you know, to them, the sex is like, you know, we're all human. We still, that's something that we're, that even if we didn't need it to procreate, people would still do.
Mhm.
But the pure don't necessarily do it for the ends of reproduction. And so she says something, when, you know, Fauna ends up propositioning Bones
Yeah.
about, you know, merging their two families, it's something that's not necessary, that's something that that doesn't happen, because the families don't even mesh. So like, there's even, and that's more of the irony of the pure, is like, even though they are, you know, exclusive, like with from they're trying to make themselves exclusive from the other groups, and like seem as they're special, and that they're in this one unit. Even in those families, there's division between them, as we're saying, between even economic decisions, how they should be made, or
Yep.
how things should go, but also, like, should the families even mix together themselves, and
Mhm.
create something from that. So lots of layers, and a lot of layers to hop in, and things that we will continue to explore through the whole Saturn Effect, and whatever comes after that.
Now, one of the biggest things that pretty much happened in issue 4 was, of course, putting Ajax Cole in that issue, which I thought was cool as shit. And it was, of course, the events. If you could bring us back to the events of Hero Day, and what is his relationship? Why do people well, not I can't say all people, but why do some members of the Modified detest him? And why is there almost an assassination attempt on his life?
So Ajax Cole, as we've talked about, is from TSC Ajax, and we haven't seen him for a while.
Right. Issue
And he
zero.
makes his it's exactly. We haven't seen him for a long time. It's been a couple of years really since we've seen him. And so he comes back in issue 4, which is Hero Day. It's the third anniversary from after what happened in the Saturn Effect Ajax. So it's been 3 years in between the Ajax 1 and Alpha 4. And Ajax, so Hero Day is to, celebrate the win for Earth, which is blowing up this mega station. But for the rest of the solar system, and specifically this Titan colonies, this isn't a day of celebration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so it's also a day to celebrate Helena, and she's seen as a hero for Earth, and this is also why it's called Hero Day.
Mm-hmm.
But since Helena's dead
Yeah.
in Alpha 4, they can't give her any sort of medal. They can't really celebrate her, and so they're celebrating Ajax. And also in this moment, there's more there's other plans going on underneath it, and that characters like General Bale that we see in Ajax and back in the day as well, who
Yeah.
now is in a bigger position, has more power. He has his own plans, and Earth has its own plans for what's to come. So why the Modified hate Ajax is because they see him as somebody that killed many members of their group in the war, and also as someone that is directly standing in front of their ability to be free of this sort of racially turbulent and divisive community that they're in.
Mm-hmm.
Just by being still controlled by Earth, it makes the tensions between the two groups even worse, right? Because even if they don't necessarily hate each other, the fact that they have another group that's beating on both of them and making life worse for both of them is making them more divisive against each other as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And necessarily, I guess that was the conflict that they ended issue 4. Necessarily, they were unsuccessful.
Mm.
And Ajax, of course, is now, what I'm saying? Like, I guess his storyline continues. And then there's also, of course, Alan Ree. Of course, I'm talking about Alpha and Centauri. Do they all end up linking going into these next issues?
I mean, yes. This is
Okay.
this is sort of the promise of issue 5, is all these storylines are colliding. So everyone that we're gonna need and everyone that you want to see in for the rest of Volume 2 is in Alpha 5, and so this is a great point for somebody to just hop in. If you haven't read anything before Alpha 4 and you just
Mhm.
want to start with Alpha 5, you really can, because we get an intro to everyone. We get to see all the things that happened beforehand, while setting up the rest of the adventure for the rest of the volume.
Mhm.
And we also even have an awesome flashback scene of Ajax 1 done by Mazzoli in this.
Okay.
We get to see that in Mazzoli's style. We actually get to see that moment, and with Marco D'Alessandro's coloring. So it's actually a really awesome thing to see. So it's a great issue if you want to get back into the Saturn Effect. Maybe you've only read Ajax and you want to get in. Maybe you've only read Alpha 1 or 2 and you want to get into it again. It's a great issue if you want to just like you don't know where to start. I mean, always start at Alpha 1, but if you don't, you just want to read it, you just want to get in, just Alpha 5, boom, and you'll get everything that you need to continue on with the story, and you're definitely not going to miss it, because we end in a magnificent fashion. The Saturn Effect Alpha is, I mean, Volume 2 is some of the best shit. It's really some of the best shit.
I
So
kind of considered that it was going to be a lot more fast paced because now we've kind of gotten to know everybody. And the thing is, you pretty much got everybody's storyline going
correct.
forth exactly like how they were going to be described. Now it's kind of like where everybody's like meeting up, and now we got to get a plan to action, even though there was a lot of action in issues 3 and issue 4. Especially from what
Right.
was going on that was leading to this conflict, and of course that ultimate cliffhanger. And then we get to issue 5 where pretty much everybody's now meeting up, and it's kind of like go time.
Correct. Correct. And and there's also been a big mystery that we've been waiting for the reveal for a long time that we also get in the issue 5 as well. So
Mm,
we've been wondering for a long time who is on the other end of Alpha's communicator
this
ever
is
since
true.
Alpha
Who they've
1.
been talking to? Yes.
So
Okay. All right.
who have they been talking to? This is answered finally in Alpha 5.
There's always been this man behind the curtain with that whole issue. And no, I've always thought, because I know you described this storyline as like a matured uh Star Wars
Hmm.
late run. I of course, my two that I always thought about when I was reading this book was Gattaca and
Okay.
Demolition Man.
Okay.
Especially because of the whole I guess the species type of
Hmm.
environment that portion of sci-fi that we go through there. That was my get, but Demolition Man was kind of like where I went through with how this story was constructed and the action that was brought into it.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where it lied with me. Another thing about this storyline that you did in the first four issues was that you provided connectivity through I guess little novellas, short stories. Now, in this issue, of course, you described in the Kickstarter that you're going to have three short stories to accompany issue 5.
Right.
Where does this take us? Does this provide more origin stories for new characters, or is this side missions that maybe we're not too cognizant of that help us read issue 5 better, and or maybe even volume 2, just going forth?
So we have three awesome shorts. So the first one is by Andrea Errico. It's it's actually in a lot of ways you can call it Ajax 4. And it's a 3-page short, and it's a moment that happens after it's a moment that happens after the flashback moment that we see in TSC Helena.
Okay.
So in TSC Helena, we see exactly the start to the Titan War. And
Mm.
so the right after
But
that,
like what kicked it off?
yeah, we see what kicked it off with Ajax, Helena, and Kip. They're going to escort a mission to the Europa mission, which is somewhere that we end up going in Alpha 5,
Mm.
and they're attacked by the Titan colonies, the Titan fleet. And so we don't see the entire how that all transpires and how they end up actually surviving it, but we do they do, and afterwards it is the impetus for the actual Titan War. And so we get to see this moment after the war has been declared between Helena and Ajax, and and what it means for the whole solar system, but also what it means for them and their relationship, and
Mm.
what and where it's going to go, and what could happen with it. And if anyone's read Ajax 3, we know that Ajax is married, so that is
Yeah.
an interesting plot point to deal with. So that's drawn by Andrea Errico and colored by Ezekiel. And then we also have another one by Emmanuel Tomarelli, also colored by the same guy. And this
Mhm.
one is following Fauna, and this is after the events of TSC Helena as well. So this takes place right after that happens, and we get a little bit more insight into Fauna and her relationship with a character named Ashes, who's a big
Yep.
deal. And then the last one we have is a little sort of side mission, side story for Enhanced, and what she's been doing to keep herself sane since she has been having this nightmare, the Saturn Effect. She's been seeing the Saturn Effect.
She's been
uh
seeing it. Yeah.
she's been seeing the Saturn Effect for every night, and so it makes it hard for her to sleep. So in this side mission we get to see just exactly how Enhanced likes to blow off steam. And we have a great artist, Jennifer Ventura, on that. And all of those are done, and they'll be in the back of the book, and they're really fun, and they're nice shorts. And I hope to do more in the future. Alpha 6 probably won't have any shorts, but Alpha 7, they will be coming back.
Okay. And now, as far as this second volume, is it going to pretty much detail? Is it going to go four issues to complete the volume? Is it a total of 8 issues?
Yes, correct. A total of 8 issues, and it's about the same length of volume one. So volume one is about 130 pages plus. All of our issues are oversized issues. Issue one is like 24 pages. Issue two is like 28 pages. Issue three is like 33 pages, and issue four is a 50 pager, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a big one. Issue four, or I'm sorry, issue five is 44 pages long.
Damn.
With the shorts, right? So
Okay.
without the shorts, it's like 30, 34, 35. So it's already a long issue there. And then issue six is another 50 pager. And then issue seven is probably going to be around the same length as issue five, so another 40 pager. And then issue eight is a little bit shorter. And don't quote me on this. Don't come back and be like, Chris, you said this was going to happen and you didn't do it. But I'm playing with the idea of seven and eight coming out together. Just
Okay.
because, just because I'm a nice guy and I personally hate when writers do what I would be doing to everyone if I just put out seven and not eight. But
Right.
but there's a reason why people do it, and I do want to build up. I do want people to really enjoy and every issue get to breathe and get get a lot of love. But it's definitely possible. It's definitely possible. You've heard it here first that seven and eight may very well come out at the same time, just because at the end of the day, I make stuff because I want people to read it, obviously, but also I want to make stuff that I would enjoy, and I would, as like if I was my own fan,
Yep.
I would hate me if I just put out that in such a way. So just for that guy, I might put out seven and eight together. But it's definitely something to keep in mind. And yes, so that all of those together, Alpha 4 is gonna, or I'm sorry, Alpha Volume 2 is gonna be very long. It might be a little bit longer than Alpha 1.
Mm.
All the things will be together. It might even have a couple extra shorts. It'll have all the shorts that are in, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that we end up making, and some extra backup stuff as well. So
Mm.
it'll be a really awesome volume. But when that'll happen, it'll probably be we have a lot of stuff. It'll probably be in the next 2 years. But Red Sea is growing. Red Sea is
It
really
is.
really rocking, and we're starting to hopefully pick up some momentum. And as you know, we had Control Z that did a lot of did really well for us a couple months ago that we've been fulfilling, and a lot of people have gotten their issues already.
Yes, sir.
And yeah, so then did you get you get yours?
I got mine.
Amazing,
It's not
amazing,
here. It's actually I have it on another shelf right over here.
amazing, awesome. I'm glad I got to you. I appreciate your support. And but yeah, we have other stuff coming out, and so we have Control Z3 that still needs to come out. We have Control Z4 that needs to come out. We have plans for Soma City to finally have its first Kickstarter.
Oh,
Soma City has never had a Kickstarter, so we have plans for that to come to the platform. And then there is also something brand new that
okay.
is coming from Red Sea Comics. That is, I won't say too much, but I will say that it's a sexy, funny action,
Okay.
and is definitely going to be interesting. It'll be a little departure from what I'm typically known for. So that means it's not sci-fi,
Okay.
but it's still a fun title that I've been making with an awesome team. And so I'm really excited to bring that at the end of the summer. So more on that soon. Um, but when we do release it, I hope that everyone enjoys it as much as I do, because I've literally just been up here in the lab just writing this for weeks now,
Right.
and I just can't stop, and I love it. So, and I think everyone else hopefully will when it's finally out there too.
That's good because like it at least we get to see another side of you. Like we
Yes.
feel of course we know you for sci-fi and we know that you love sci-fi. But and to have
Um,
the ability to I guess to showcase a little bit more your personality to show you aren't this dark intricate guy. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like
and
like
it's
those
interesting.
are the storylines I'm used to making, and this is pretty much all I'm going to be putting out there to the world. I'm Stephen King. I write horror. I do horror, and that's all I'm going to write. But no, people have different sides to them.
Definitely, definitely. This will definitely be a different side. I'm very curious how people will see it, and it will be really weird for anyone that decides, "Hey, I'm going to start with that book and then go to like the Saturn Effect or Control Z," and they're going like, "Damn, these are like way darker and create like." It definitely is a more lighthearted vibe to it.
Okay.
It's it's got but it's it's also sexy, and it's also very fast paced, and it definitely has all the action that you'll want from it. So definitely keep an eye out for that.
Is this
And yeah, it'll be fun to expand the audience some more.
is this an original story? Or are you making a parody?
Yes, no, this is original story. But I'll tell you'll see when you see it. And when you
Okay.
see it, we could talk about it. You'll be the first person that I'll give the scoop to. I'll set once I have the first issue completely ready for you, like the review copies finished.
Yeah.
I'll send it to you, and we'll talk about it, and because I'm curious what you'll think about it.
I'll gladly take a look at that. Now as far as where you've come along within the 4 issues that basically you put out with this, with Control Z, with Soma City, which you basically put out during COVID during that time, and it was sort of
Right.
like a revealing piece because it it fit right within that faction, and the fact that like pretty much where you've been with Red Sea Comics and the fact that now you've been able to do tabling and doing a lot of
Mhm.
Comic Cons and everything like that, you've actually gotten to see some people with your books and have been successful in doing so with the Kickstarter so far. How do you feel like I guess your niche in indie comics has been since you've jumped in this?
I think I'm still carving it out, but I think the branding, I think I'm getting a brand. I think people are starting to understand what a Chris Moses project is going to bring you. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to get really awesome art, you're going to get really, cool high concept story, and you're going to get really really cool, awesome, interesting characters that hopefully that you'll gravitate onto and latch onto. So I've been feeling like the journey has been going well. Obviously, we want things to go faster. Everybody wants everything right now,
This is true.
uh, but I've been trying to enjoy the baby steps and the just any sort of progress. And I feel like the really great thing about comics, and I've said this before, is that and in this context of a niche, you can be proactive on carving out your niche, making comic books in 2023 online with things like Kickstarter, things like Indiegogo, Crowdfunder, Zoop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, or any other platform, just putting up a web comic or going onto Webtoons, having
Yep.
your own digital store, BackerKit, et cetera, Patreon. There's so many different options for you. In 2023, you can really take your career and and carve out your niche with your stories and your books, and really take control over what like your progress and the impact that you're trying to make, and just like where your career is going. You have the ability to do that, you have the agency to do that in comics right now, and that's why I love it, and that's why I'm really invested in it, and that's why I'm, even though I'm not where I want to be, but I don't think I ever will be where I want to be, in the sense that I'm always going to continue to want to drive and push forward and get more and more and more and get better and better and better until until I drop dead.
Mm-hmm.
But while I'm doing that, I actually have the ability to continue to push, and it doesn't rely on me going to a studio, a manager, an executive, an editor. Name the list of gatekeepers or people that are going to stop you from getting what you want or pushing forward. None
Exactly.
of those, they don't exist. The only gatekeeper is you and your customers, right? And the people that will are going to support you in your career. And that's, it just drives me, it motivates me, and that's why I feel like as I carve out this niche, I'm starting to find hopefully people that are going to follow me for the rest of my career. I mean, I'm still a relatively young guy, like
Yeah.
I'm not super young, but I am only 27. So hopefully these people, if I live to the average age of whatever it is for a guy, 70 something, that's like 50 something years of people hopefully backing and enjoying stories from me. So I've
Excellent.
been really enjoying it, and I feel like it's going well. And there's a lot of stuff cooking. There's a lot of stuff in the background, and under that's the under wraps that will be coming out, you know, later this year and then next year, that I think people are going to be really excited about, and you'll get to see like what I've been cooking, because you only people only get to see a fraction, of all the work I put in.
This is true. This is true, and there's
Yeah.
a lot that goes into it. The one thing I will say for the most part is that, um, you've been doing an excellent job as far as like what you've been putting out as far as Red Sea Comics
Thank you. I
and just
appreciate that.
going forth. So I totally appreciate you and what you've been doing for the game and pretty much exactly how it's been described with people, of course, finding their niche, as you said. It's been more so enabling for a lot of us that love reading comics that we find an author that we like and we can stick to them because we know exactly what they bring to the table. You know what I mean? So I
For sure.
appreciate you being here with me. That's for sure. So once again, Chris
I
Moses,
appreciate you, man.
everybody, James Grandmaster Facts Boys, and we are out.